What is up, everyone? Welcome to the RotoWire EPL DFS preview show. Yeah, you heard that right. It's a new show. My name is Jack Burkart. You can find me on Twitter at Jack Burkart. I am joined by our 2022 King of the Pitch winner, a golf DFS savant, and a man who reminds you to go to church on Sundays and in the middle of the week if you must. It's Ryan Belongia. You can find him on Twitter at Ryan Belongia. Ryan, how excited are you for EPL to be back, especially after a big golf win?
Oh, I couldn't be more excited. Yeah, like you said, I had a massive golf day on Sunday, the second best day of my life, DFS-wise. Only King of the Pitch was better. Really sort of saved my summer. You know, I was complaining a lot on the last soccer podcast toward the end of the season, Euros, Champions League. You know, didn't have the greatest second half of the season, but all erased with one big golf day. And now we got soccer coming back. Thought it'd be nice to do a little preview. You know, we've got new signings on each team, some new managers, some key departures, 3 promoted teams. So, yeah, you know, we can give a little brief overview DFS-wise of each club, maybe prepare the people for the season. Sorry, I just sort of stopped talking. I don't have anything more. Did you freeze? Well, not off to a great start, as it looks like Jack's frozen. Considering he was supposed to lead this and has the info. Maybe we wait for him to come back for a couple minutes. I see he's got Arsenal up on the screen. I knew we were going to start there. That's a pretty easy starting point. Not much has happened with Arsenal yet. They signed Calafiori from Bologna, one of these, you know, left back, center back, hybrid types. You back, Jack?
I think I'm back.
I don't know what happened. First show and you freeze right away, you know?
It's, I don't know, we'll blame my parents' hardware or something like that. But I assume that you've been giving a master class on golf or something of that nature.
I know, I actually started talking about Arsenal.
Oh, fantastic. Keep going.
No, I just got into it. I said, you know, they haven't done much yet except sign Calafiori from Bologna. Said he's one of these left back, center back, hybrid types, really good defender, really good physically. You know, got a little bit of Guardiola vibes in him. I think that's the position that they want, that Arsenal wants him to play. Other than that, Arsenal haven't really done anything. You know, everybody's thinking, I heard they signed Mikel Merino today from Sociedad. I think that's going to happen. He'll probably play, you know, alongside Rice in the center, or Partey, or Jorginho, or who knows. But really, they need to sign a center forward. That's what everybody's clamoring for. I mean, I think they will. They've been in for Sesko. I don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe Gyökeres from Sporting, but somebody. You know, I've even heard like Ivan Toney's name thrown around. I hope that doesn't happen. I heard the Arsenal players don't really like Ivan Toney, and I just don't think he's good enough for Arsenal. But anyways, we're going to talk about, you know, it's pretty much the same Arsenal team right now, except they've added Calafiori. They get Timber back from long-term injury, who was a big signing for them last summer. And, you know, they already had about the best defense in Europe. It seems to have gotten better. We've been making jokes that, you know, their matches against the big teams this year are just going to be 0-0 games.
0-0.
And I mean, yeah, I think you will see them play like that. I mean, they just have such a good defense. We saw Saliba in the Euros, sort of the star of the tournament from a center back point of view. But yeah, I think same old Arsenal. Defense got better. It's going to be really tough to score against them. They're going to score a lot of goals, but maybe in the big games, they're going to be lower scoring games. We saw 0-0 against City, you know, 1-0, 0-0 against Liverpool, you know. So that's kind of what I expect until you get the Tottenham game, the North London derby. Then we'll get some.
That'll be 3-1.
Right. But what do you think?
I think you hit on a lot of the things that I wanted that I wanted to mention. So I got the Chrome thing up. So first thing, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that Adam's been working really hard on our season-long projections. So just like a lot of key categories, it helps for all fantasy formats, whether it's like DraftKings or whether it's, even FPL. He's got minutes projections, which is so hard on the season-long level. But, roughly using what we know about the player efficiency and role, good stuff spits out. And they look pretty reasonable to me, Ryan. I think you touched on a lot of the things that I wanted to mention. The first thing was that I feel like Arsenal are more of a defensive team rather than an offensive team in priority. It's not that they're bad at offense, but for a team of their caliber, their defense stands out. So I have a Google sheet that I'll be alternating for, and I'll post this on a Discord. So rotowire.com/chat if you're a member. I'll drop the link here so you can look through everything. But I just got some data here, like, Arsenal's goals for and goals against. Ryan, only conceding 27 expected goals throughout the course of a season. I think you're spot on. The defense already got much, much better. And we see you never want to play our players against Arsenal. I have DK offense ratings and DK defense ratings. Sort of what they're saying, Ryan, is if Arsenal played against an average team, they would score 7.2 points of DK floor points above average. So everything outside of goals and assists. And then they concede about 18 less. So that's typical of what we see from a team about as elite as Arsenal. We're going to want to play them when they're available, Ryan, and basically untouchable as an opponent unless it's some ridiculous price play. Ryan, I think the thing that is a headache with Arsenal is player minutes on a game-by-game level. We'll see Trossard start in the left wing, but Martinelli is almost certain to come on at 65 minutes. Is he even going to take set pieces because Declan Rice started taking set pieces? Odegaard chips in here and there, but he's mostly their free kick guy. I guess what sort of headaches do you anticipate from Arsenal when you start kind of digging into the DFS? We're not going to really play their defenders unless it's Ben White against a minnow. And Rice is a tough commodity to play. He's dependent on his set pieces, even though he can venture forward. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. If they use the same set piece guys as last season, it made it tough. I think they will use Rice. They had a lot of success and they were, specifically using Rice for the types of corners they like to take. And we saw his price got up there towards the end, and he was sort of like a decision point on a lot of slates, especially smaller 2-game slates and showdown slates. And yeah, that's tough. I think we saw it maybe fail more often than not. Rice had some big games, but when he's priced up there with those other Arsenal players, you're going to have a decision. As far as minutes go, we saw Arteta just run Saka into the ground a little bit. England sort of did the same. Like, Saka was the guy who didn't really get subbed. He's built for it, so I wouldn't really worry about Saka's minutes, especially in big spots, or as long as the fixture list isn't too congested. And then, yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I think the team's still going to look a bit different. I don't know who's going to start on the left. Is it going to be Martinelli? Is it going to be Trossard? Yeah, there's sub risk. Arsenal still might even sign another winger. You never know. I still think, I've heard rumors about Eze, those types, even like a Kudus would be just the absolute dream. A guy like that could come in. But yeah, they're probably going to sign a center forward too. So it's tough to comment, but yeah, Jesus is back. Where are they going to use him? People want him out on the wing. They started to use him on the wing and, bring Kai into the center. Kai did really good as a center forward. And he did for Germany even too when they needed it. Hopefully, they don't have to rely on that. Hopefully they bring someone in. But if this is the team and no other, I think, and nobody comes in, I think it'll be pretty similar to last season. You'll have Kai as a de facto center forward. Maybe Jesus plays there some. And then, yeah, that left winger is probably going to get subbed pretty often. And then you'll see Saka and Odegaard not really get subbed. I think Arteta will be similar to last season in that regard.
Yeah, it feels like with the Arsenal showdowns, it's going to be, captain Saka. He's clearly going to be the best play. I have on the sheet down here just historical minutes, Saka, historical fantasy floor points per minute. Saka always stands out, and he has just such a great role. He's always going to be splitting set pieces on one side, and then he's going to be the primary penalty taker unless he hands one off to Odegaard randomly. We'll play Odegaard because he gets 90 minutes. And then, I don't know, one takeaway is, Rice was priced the same as Trossard, Martinelli. We saw that Rice has a slightly worse floor, but his competition was playing only 2/3 of the game. And so if you just give a 2/3 modifier, you see that it's about the same. So it's just going to be one of those headaches that, you just got to get it right, or maybe, I don't know, you just got to cross your fingers. I don't think there's much rhyme or reason behind it. Maybe if you know some ball and think Rice is going to get more forward, he's going to be the play there. But yeah, I think that's just going to be the Arsenal headache this year.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it might just depend, whether Arsenal get an early goal or not, or an early couple goals or not. Then, usually those wingers will be better plays than Rice. If not, they'll get subbed in more corners, and Rice will, pass them on floor and all that stuff. The typical fun problem to have.
Yeah, classic game script correlation. Ryan, any last word on Arsenal, or shall we move on to Aston Villa?
No, I'm excited for Arsenal this season. I see it plus 187 to win the league. I think City is plus 110. So, and then nobody else is close. Liverpool plus 700. So I would expect to get Arsenal City again, similar to last season. Maybe this is the year they do it. Maybe not.
Maybe not. Well, I have to agree with those odds. It feels like these two stand quite above the rest. Next team we want to get into is Aston Villa. So some key signings that Aston Villa have made, Ryan, there's actually been quite a bit of business. Douglas Luiz has departed the team, and he was kind of a key anchor as a defensive midfielder, played a ton of minutes for them, took some set pieces and penalties. Very important player. We've also seen Moussa Diaby, who's taken me to the torture chamber in DFS, mostly from doing nothing, but I play him anyway because he's so low price. So I say good riddance to Diaby and Zaniolo and his 50th minute subs as well. Incoming players are fairly interesting as well, Ryan. We got Onana coming in, probably as your Luiz replacement-ish, although they're not really the same player. Ian Maatsen coming in with the already crowded left back room. And then you like Cameron Archer. I know Ryan as maybe someone who will play in rotation, but not someone who's going to feature. And then I know some Juventus fans have thought that Samuel Ealing Jr., they rate him pretty well. But again, he's going to be a player that might get a start here or there. I don't know, Ryan. I found Aston Villa from a fantasy point of view to be extremely frustrating. The set pieces were done by committee work. No one really stood out for floor. Like showdown cash games, I mean, you really shouldn't. I play them, but they're so hard. They were even harder with Aston Villa because, like, Lord knows. And if you look, no one really stands out as someone who had the key role in fantasy. I don't know, Ryan, what are your takeaways on this Aston Villa team with some new looks?
For DFS, I think it's nice to have Douglas Luiz out of there. For one, he took penalties and usually half the sets, but like you say, sometimes not. They were very frustrating. They brought in a couple other guys too. I believe they brought in Ross Barkley. I think he's a ready-made Douglas Luiz replacement, actually. I think he can do basically the same for them, maybe even a little bit more attacking-wise. The only reason Luiz is, more highly rated is because he's so much younger. Barkley's on Villa, right?
No, he's on Villa now. Yeah, I must have missed that in my list.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, and one other guy, I think they signed Jaden Philogene. I think, is that how you say his name? From the Championship. Another one of these winger types for like 15 million or so. Actually, he was the guy who was linked with Barcelona, signing for Barcelona like a month ago. And then we found out it was his agent that like planted the stories out there. But yeah, then, anyways, he scored the goal of the season in the Championship last year. Just an absolutely incredible goal. So yeah, I think he's sort of a Diaby replacement, Zaniolo replacement. With these other guys they signed that, like Ealing Jr. from Juventus, he's only 20. So some developing to do. And then, Maatsen, I would assume they want to start him at left back. I mean, they paid a lot of money for him. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on sets. Maatsen's left-footed, McGinn's left-footed. Who's going to have priority there? We saw Maatsen take a couple for Dortmund here and there. But Villa, they'll be frustrating, I feel like. they really can play to their competition, though. I mean, they beat Arsenal twice last season. They beat City. We see Emery with just masterclass after masterclass against these top teams. But against the bottom teams, sometimes they play down to their competition. Sometimes like the floors aren't there. You would think Ollie Watkins would be back on penalties, assuming he stays on Villa. You could see Watkins even going to a bigger club. Was really good at the World Cup. Goal he scored. Not many forwards can score that winning goal that he scored. So I mean, I like Villa. They're frustrating, but I think they're qualified for Champions League. They showed a lot last season. I think they could be as good. I mean, it looks like on paper, you would think they got a little worse. I mean, losing Luiz for like 40 million and Diaby for 50 million, but I don't know. I think they're going to be just fine. I think it'll be a similar Villa to what we saw last season, maybe even better. They have young players who should improve too. Morgan Rogers really started to play last year. Jacob Ramsey was injured, but he's a stud and he's young too if he gets better. So no, I think Villa are going to be a really tough team this year. I think they'll probably blow a few teams away. I think they'll give the top teams really tough games, but they're tough to predict. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on the sets.
Yeah, I agree, Ryan. I think Emery is a manager who actually makes a net difference for his team. A lot of managers, I don't know how much it really matters, but I think Emery will be able to handle a pretty big squad, and he'll need a really big squad. There's going to be the Premier League campaign, 2 cups, and then the Champions League group stage was expanded to 8 matches. So that's going to add even more fixture congestion. I mean, Ryan, like Emiliano Buendia is going to be back. I noticed that Ryan has some minutes projected for him. So their attack's going to go very deep. That might be frustrating, but as you said, we just don't really know more up to this point. I think the one thing I do want to point out is, we're talking about players being unreliable for set pieces. Some of my more skilled opponents were very quick to this trend, and I was much too slow. Captaining Ollie Watkins in almost all cash game formats and showdowns, even using Ollie Watkins in cash games overall, even in smaller classic slates. We see that Adam has him projected for some pretty good utilization here. A lot of goals, but even more impressive, 45 chances created. That would lead the team. And I think that's kind of how he plays. Like, I don't think the assists that he got were flukes, Ryan. I think he's a main conduit for his team. He's not going to take set pieces, but he's going to take shots and offer some creative chances. I think that gives him a pretty good floor. And if we swing back and look at what he actually did on a floor basis, where are you, Ollie Watkins? Yeah, about 7 floor from a center forward who's going to normally have good goal scoring odds and probably good assist odds. Probably one of the top plays overall in each format.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I agree. No, probably has pens too. I mean, unless, it could be like a Tielemans, a guy I didn't even mention who their team is so crowded, Villa. Yeah, that might be annoying for minutes. I didn't even mention Tielemans or Leon Bailey, who actually might be the 2 set piece takers. You might see Bailey take over McGinn and Maatsen for the left-footed ones. But yeah, and then if Watkins gets pens, he just always plays 90 minutes. I think that's sharp in like a showdown. Yeah, to captain Watkins. I think, like you said, some people were early on that and it paid off.
Yeah, and it's not that they got lucky. I think they were just correct, given the way that this Villa team sets up. You look at the chart. I'll post it in Discord. No one stands out in floor, so just get yourself someone who's close enough and is most likely to score a goal. Ryan, I'm just glad that I probably won't have to play Alex Moreno anymore. My projection, the machine, always just wanted me to jam Alex Moreno like he was prime Fede DeMarco, I think was your joke. So good riddance. Alex Moreno. Ryan, any last words on Villa before we move on to our next team?
No, maybe Maatsen will project like that for you.
Oh, geez. Well, pray for me.
Might be a new guy. Yep.
There's always someone new. Ryan, next team on our list is Bournemouth, and it's a Bournemouth team that actually played reasonably well, I think, against expectations last season. At least it was a team that I actually somewhat enjoyed watching. They finished 12th in the league overall, and, they kind of had this middling goals for, goals against. It's a very crowded sort of middle group, but it wasn't like they were lucky or unlucky. The expected goals sort of go in that way. So it was a team that I thought played reasonably well and was able to get wins against similar opposition. I mean, they were going to get crushed by better opposition, as what happens with most mid-table teams in the Premier League. But Ryan, it was kind of a headache to deal with their set pieces. So Bournemouth is another set piece headache team. We would get some good performances, some bad performances from Marcus Tavernier. So he was really frustrating. We never knew if it was going to be a Lewis Cook slate, and they basically all turned into that. And they have so many wingers, Ryan, that there is always rotation. They're another team where it kind of feels like Solanke was one of the most reliable options, although you could lean on Cook. So as I'm saying at Bournemouth, similar prognostication to Aston Villa. They got Sinisterra and Unal in. They had them on loan, and they're going to be playing. And I know they have a new defender, Ryan, this Dean Huijsen, and I'm sorry for pronouncing his name wrong. I don't know, Ryan. Do you think these are meaningful additions for Bournemouth? I mean, the lost players, Lloyd Kelly kind of hurts, but Joe Rothwell and Kiefer Moore really weren't in the squad. I don't know. What do you think about Bournemouth this upcoming season?
I mean, I think it's going to be pretty much the same Bournemouth. Frustrating with the amount of attackers that they have. So, the wingers they start usually get subbed. Sinisterra and Unal, they brought them in the second half of last season. Didn't play too much, or didn't start really too much, but started to play more at the end. Unal looked okay at the end. I don't know if they're going to play him and Solanke together. I don't know if him being there means Solanke is a sub risk now. I don't know. I think I could see them trying to play them together, but I really don't know. The manager, he likes to attack. And so you get games with Bournemouth where they maybe score a few goals or give up a few goals. And then other times where they just don't play well, like you said, and we had a lot of those Lewis Cook slates. And, we might again, especially, for Showdown, you have some other attackers getting subbed. Lewis Cook just seems to get his 10 points a lot of times, especially if he's still splitting corners, which it looks like he would. So that's a bit annoying. You never really like to click Lewis Cook when he's above 5K or so. But you're right, similar to Villa, where maybe a center forward is sort of the guy you can trust the most for minutes and goals and penalties. And, Tavernier is always frustrating. And I think that's probably going to be the same going forward. Going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, I played Tavernier in cash in some, key spots where it was a decision and I opted for Tavernier. And there's times where he scores a goal early, but ends with 13.7 points. Sometimes he just drops a nuke on the slate. I think he ended with negative one time. It really tough to trust, even if he does take half the set pieces, because it seemed that the way that Bournemouth were playing, he was kind of peripheral. It's not like the attack was necessarily funneling through him. Ryan, some other frustrating. Oh, go ahead.
No, I usually with Tavernier, I'll find myself maybe wanting to target him against the promoted teams this year. He's tough to trust in neutral matchups or where Bournemouth are underdogs. Yeah, I felt like I feel like he failed more often than not last season, outside of a couple spike weeks. But yeah, Bournemouth could beat up on the promoted teams. I think they do have goals in them. They've got a lot of talented attackers. They're just pretty much all get subbed.
Yeah, but against promoted teams, I'll want to take rips on Semenyo. He's your favorite. I know guys like Hesh were always playing Clivert, it seems, in Discord. But maybe one thing worth pointing out is that, Lewis Cook is a bit of a headache in the midfield, but we also saw some matches where Alex Scott was playing, and then there's Ryan Christie there as well. And I saw fairly often, and although it's somewhat a small sample in hindsight, but the sharp players were always nailing these Alex Scott picks. They somehow just had it. It's like they knew the future. Okay, Alex Scott is going to take set pieces and play 75 minutes in this one, not take set pieces and go off at 45. And then there were games where Ryan Christie was also playable and he was getting a little bit more forward. I don't know. Do you have any insight into this Bournemouth midfield, or is it just a skill issue on my end?
No, I don't know. I think it's a lot of headaches. I got Scott right a few times and then got Scott wrong a few times towards the end. It seems like towards the end of the season, he wasn't really taking any sets. And he's dealing with some injuries and just not playing too much. And also it seemed like they were better without Scott. I don't know, but he's young. And another year now. But yeah, Christie there, and a lot of guys like Kluivert. Kluivert's a guy like he would like to play. We play him sometimes because he's so cheap, but almost always going to get subbed. But no floor, really, not much of a floor for those other peripheral guys. I mean, Semenyo kind of had one. He seemed to play longer than the others and just did more from open play. I don't know. You have the numbers there, Jack. I remember like Justin Kluivert, it was basically Justin Kluivert is always close to getting a yellow card, just the way he plays. Really like the way he plays, but he's just going to commit a lot of fouls and it hurts his floor. I don't know. What does the spreadsheet say?
Yeah, I mean, Kluivert had the same floor as Solanke, so it's basically like they had another center forward out there. He's not one of these like creative central attacking midfielders. And then everyone else had some like pretty solid floors. So Enes Unal was like, he had to come in garbage time a lot. So it'd be interesting to see. Like, he's someone who I would take some risks on early because I think he's capable of being really productive. Although end of season, I don't expect, 13 or 14 DraftKings points per, but that's the ceiling that I think he demonstrated. So that's pretty interesting. I don't know. I always like playing Semenyo for those reasons. He seemed to have a slightly better floor, but again, it's just like Villa. They need to score a goal to make their value. I don't think you can just say, "Oh, this guy's going to have an 8-point floor on a given day." It just doesn't work.
Yeah,
like that.
One of those teams where in a vacuum, price would dictate a lot of your decisions, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Kluivert was always very cheap. Maybe we'll see some like cheap Sinistera. I think you can just play the cheapest option and treat them almost all the same,
Me too.
Get a better feel for minutes as we move on. Yeah, I mean, any final takeaways on Bournemouth, Ryan?
No, not really. I mean, they didn't have a right back. Is Smith still? Smith's still their right back. Like, how can they go into the season like that? I don't know. We tried playing Kirkez. Kirkez is a good play when he goes 90 minutes, but almost never did. Like, is that going to change? We'll see.
I'm back.
Oh, did you freeze again?
Yeah, I froze again. All right. Let's move on to our next team. We have Manchester City, our favorites against Arsenal. So, almost even money to win the league.
Seems like Jack froze again.
Ridiculous. And Ryan, Pep Guardiola's been at City since 2006. I'm back. I was just talking about how it felt like Pep Guardiola's been around forever these days. But Ryan, I don't think too much is going to change with Manchester City. They have Savio, who they signed from Troyes through, whatever corrupt, weird deal they have where they can own half the teams in Europe. I mean, absolutely elite on offense and in defense, in output, in expected output, and in fantasy output. It's not going to be too much of a changed squad, Ryan. So, I mean, is there anything different we're going to see with City, or are they just going to continue to dominate and DK will continue to price them as a only above average team when they're really quite elite?
Yeah, I would think so. I think it's just more of the same. Will we get some departures? I don't know. There's been rumors about Julian Alvarez. He might go. Don't really think that'd even be that big of a loss, actually. They have enough. Bernardo Silva went. They might get a little bit worse. I mean, he's sort of a glue guy for them, especially in the big spots. But yeah, they signed Savio or Savinho. Probably Girona's best player last season. I see him valued around 50 million. I didn't get to watch him that much last year, but he's a Brazilian that I've seen some lofty comparisons to Vinny Jr. I mean, that's as high of a ceiling as it gets, but he's one of these tricky Brazilian wingers, just another guy that I'm sure is going to be good and tough to deal with, and him on one side, Joku on the other, or maybe they just spell each other on that left side. Might make it a little bit annoying for subs and stuff. But yeah, just in general, it looks like KDB is going to stay. Probably going to be the same old City, right? Why change? Why change anything? They've been so successful. So yeah, I think, same old thing of not wanting to play anyone against City, and then hoping you get Holland roulette right, I guess. City are very annoying to me, and I think that's just going to be the case again.
I think we need Mo Hendy to come on and enlighten us in all the ways to get City correct on a slate-by-slate basis, although he probably wants to keep those secrets to himself, Ryan. Do you know any news about this apparent Holland injury? Adam has some pretty conservative minutes on him. He usually does play a good assortment of minutes, but he's a player who's struggled with injury in the past, not so much last year. Coming into the season with a knock, that might just be a fragility to make us fade more and suffer just a little bit more, but definitely is notable.
It is. And, I'm usually in the fade Holland camp. At the end of the last season, it was the move, I think, more often than not. We saw him bust quite often. We saw no floor games quite often. But, those hat trick games are always there. I think at the start of the season, if he's dealing with something, there's going to be more sub risk there. But otherwise, he's a 90-minute guy. He can play game after game and probably will. They don't really have a center forward. If they lose Alvarez, then they really don't, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I have no idea who they would play there. Pep would probably just invent some new formation and they would still win rather easily. Ryan, another question I have. Foden started splitting set pieces even with KDB playing his regular allotted minutes. Do you expect that to continue? I don't really think it matters that much. It's not like, I don't want to stop playing Kevin De Bruyne, but it does ding his floor by like 3 points, which is somewhat meaningful.
That's a good point. It matters a little, definitely. It matters to me. I mean, the last game of the season is a big one that stood out. I mean, I think Foden took almost all the corners. Half in that one?
It was side luck, like right versus left.
Yeah. It would make maybe, the same as KDB or as much of a priority, if not more, price dependent. I don't know. Foden was the player of the year last year in the league and deservedly so. And I could see him having like more ceiling games in him than KDB. Probably will. There's going to be a lot of slates where you're just playing both of them, just like there was last year. But maybe there's some times when you can fade KD. If it's truly a set piece split, maybe there's some times when you can fade KDB where in the past we wouldn't have. I mean, I faded Foden last year and got crushed a few times, and maybe that doesn't happen again if we know he's taking sets.
Yeah, maybe you can do it a small amount. If he doesn't have a monopoly, there are a bit more routes to failure, but he's like 32, which makes him ancient in soccer. Maybe he just gets subbed off at 70 minutes with a bit more frequency. It might not be like 95% KDB and GPPs is correct anymore.
I agree. I think we could see that. I think you could see more 70-minute subs.
Yeah. One last quick thing, Ryan. The thing that I noticed in doing this exercise, Rodri was averaging 8 floor per 90 minutes, and he's always a 90-minute player. Just a player I've been so wrong about in so many ways, and usually the price is right. He takes up a midfield spot, but I think we just have to respect. I mean, I think people were trending this way. I mean, Rodri is just a good DFS play. It sometimes fails, but when it works out, it's usually very cost-effective.
Yeah. Like, are those numbers from last year, or are those projections?
Last year. These are last year's numbers.
8 goals and 9 assists. I mean, those are some pretty hefty contribution. And to go with that floor, Rodri's a slate breaker type. Definitely keep that in mind. I wasn't normally a Rodri guy, and yet you got bit by him more than a few times.
Yeah, Adam projects some regression, 5 goals, 6 assists in a season long. But, I mean, that's still really good. That's about a third of the slates that he's going to be making a big impression on. I don't know. I can't just be like the Jesse Pinkman. He can't keep getting away with it. He's going to eat, especially.
Player of the tournament, right?
Yeah.
Player of the tournament in Euros. I mean, you were close. Your cruise narrative, but with Spain. I mean, you just picked the wrong team. But
yeah. Well, I was too down on Spain because of my prejudice, but it turns out like Spain are actually like awesome now and don't do their like boring, we're gonna do a bunch of horizontal 20-yard passes and then complain when we don't win act. It's good to see a good Spain team absolutely crush, and a team that takes attacking initiative too for once in Euros. That is quite the tangent. Ryan, any final takes on City?
No.
Let's get this last one in for this clip. So it was a disappointing season, I think, for Brentford, but it was a Brentford team that struggled a lot with injuries. Like Rico Henry is a key player in their defense, and he was hurt. And Mbeumo was hurt for a large portion. Tony was suspended for his gambling suspension for a while. And I feel like they were dealing with other injuries as well, like Matthias Jensen getting hurt. So it's a Brentford team, which I think is pretty sharp. I mean, I read the book Net Gains, and they like are a pretty analytically minded team. I think they do a lot of sharp things. I like Thomas Frank. I think he does a good job adapting to his opposition, right? Like 3 center backs in tough spots, only 2 in other spots, just going with the 4 at the back. So hopefully it's a Brentford team that can come back, but there really hasn't been that much business done, and they might lose Ivan Toney. So I don't really know where I'm headed with this, Ryan, but do you think that Brentford can bounce back to maybe be like a 9th place type team?
Nope, I don't. I'm worried about Brentford. They actually broke the bank for Igor Thiago. I think club record signing center forward, but now he's injured and out multiple months last I saw. And if Tony leaves and they're not going to have Thiago for a while, yeah, I think they're in trouble. I just remember them. They were pretty bad towards the last season. I shouldn't say that. They were inconsistent. They have some spots where they really show up and some spots where they really let down. But I like Thomas Frank, and they've always been a team that's good at home. So I can still, they still have Wissa and Mbeumo, who are, talented Premier League quality players that have goals in them in any spot. So I think they can stay up, but yeah, I'm worried. They haven't done much except make their record signing, who's injured now. And if they lose Ivan Toney, yeah, it's going to be tough. You're going to be relying a lot on Mbeumo early in the season. And Wissa, 2 guys that can do it. Lewis Potter, you saw him show up a couple times, might be needed. Kevin Schade, I don't know what they're really going to do. They're not deep like Villa and Bournemouth are. Not at all.
And even their best lineup, Ryan, I think Bournemouth, their best lineup, I'd probably choose more players than I would from Brentford. I think it's really just like on a club level, how they're managed. I think they definitely exceed their player talent level. I mean, like, I think Mbeumo is good. I think Wissa is good, like you said. But I mean, like, it's nothing special. Nothing special in the midfield. Matthias Jensen is fine, but I mean, I don't know. It's tough to get inspired, especially by this defense, anchored by Ben Mee. Rico Henry's getting old. I don't think Aaron Hickey is a particularly special left back. They're going to have to overcome a talent deficit, I think. And probably if a team goes down that wasn't one of the promoted teams, Brentford is probably one of the candidates. I don't have the relegation odds, but they are probably up there.
Yeah, I can pull them up, but no, I agree with you. From a DFS point of view, I think Mbeumo should be pretty solid splitting sets. You would think he splits sets with Jensen again. Jensen always frustrating. I never really play Jensen.
Well, look at that open play floor, Ryan. This is the first one we've seen where it's a player who just absolutely needs the set pieces to get there. Like less than 5 points from open play usually. And a player who's tortured me with ridiculous long range goals as well. Yeah, he's a player that absolutely needs those sets.
Yeah. So, yeah, he gets there sometimes, but as you can see there, not a good open play floor. And was getting subbed quite often last season. So that
Ryan, at the end of the season, we were playing Franco Yenka, like not as a bit. Like he was cheap and like he was averaging 8 points per 90. Do you think that type of thing is sticky?
Not really. No. No, we'll have to see. But yeah, like in general, I'm on the fade Jensen train more often than not, especially if he's going to be popular. You can fade him in showdowns sometimes. And I had something else to say, but I just forgot. I think Mboma will probably be pretty solid though. 90 minutes. Penalties will go to him if Tony's not there. Should have a floor. Oh, I was going to say, yeah, what I said, like, I think Brentford they just play much better at home. They score more goals. They have a higher floor. Like inconsistent teams tend to do, but Brentford over the years have gotten most of their points from home matches. And I think that will continue.
Yeah, if that continues, they have, I think, some hope of staying up then. I don't know, Ryan. It's not a team that there really is to say much about. I mean, hopefully they aren't a set piece headache. We've seen sometimes when Wayne will take all the corners. Sometimes he takes none. At least he has open play value, the line that we can always resort to in our articles. And we'll just have to see who's starting in their midfield three, which seems to be often rotating. But any last words on Brentford before we take a break after these 5 teams?
No.
40 minutes, Ryan. I know some tech issues on my end, but you thought that we wouldn't be able to meander about and talk about all these teams.
Impressive.
I think there's plenty to talk about.
Yeah, that's good.
Never doubt the RotoWire Fantasy Show for being verbose and wandering, but a lot of good information here. I certainly learned stuff myself. We will see you in the next video.